Hi everyone and welcome to MiniTown Talks, a podcast created by MiniTown Cafe and Play, where we have conversations with people in your community who have something meaningful to share with parents and families. I'm Christine, owner of MiniTown, and today we are talking about something that every parent thinks about at some point, our children's development. My guest today is Caitlin Kukhta, Clinical Director at Speech Pathology Group and Rehab Services of Connecticut, and by trade, a pediatric occupational therapist. Caitlin actually began her career in early childhood education. After teaching, she discovered that what she really loved was being able to work more closely with children and provide individualized support, which eventually led her to occupational therapy. She earned her master's degree in occupational therapy from Sacred Heart University and has since worked with children in a wide variety of settings, from birth to 3 and schools to hospitals and outpatient sensory clinics. Today, she works alongside professionals in occupational therapy, speech therapy, and ABA, helping children and families navigate development, celebrate progress, and build the skills children need in everyday life. And there's another perspective Caitlin brings to this conversation that I think is really important. She's also a mom. So she gets to see child development from both sides, as a professional and as a parent. And somehow, on top of that, she found time for another passion that fits very well here at MiniTown: coffee. Caitlin is also creator of Coffee in Connecticut, an Instagram and blog dedicated to Connecticut coffee scene, including maps of coffee shops around the state and the stories behind local cafes. So basically, Caitlin, you brought together two of our favorite subjects at MiniTown today: kids and coffee. Welcome to MiniTown Talks. I'm so happy to have you here today, and we are gonna start talking about your life. So you actually started in early childhood education and taught before becoming an occupational therapist. You said you fell in love with being able to provide that more individualized one-on-one support to children. What was it about the experience that made you realize OT was the direction you wanted to go?
Absolutely. I was a teacher and I focused mostly in preschool and kindergarten ages. And of course, as many teachers know, you have a big classroom, you have a lot of children you're working with. And I always had a couple students that stood out to me who were struggling. They needed that one-to-one support, and they just weren't getting it in that classroom setting. They just weren't getting it enough. And I had a couple students who were receiving services at the time, and not knowing anything about speech or OT wasn't something I had really known that these were fields that were out there to explore. I was really drawn to a student in particular who had a visual deficit, and they had BESB, which is support for students with any type of blindness or visual impairment. And that provider would come in and work with him. He had OT and he was just glowing when he came back. He was so excited to go. He made such great gains in what I saw in the classroom with him, and I knew it was all because of this therapist who just was able to drive that out of him. And I just really like that idea of working one-to-one with a child and really being able to hone in on all the deficits that they might have, and knowing that we could see those small wins and just the great big wins over time that they make with that one-to-one support. So I left the field of education and started to explore occupational therapy routes. I also love that occupational therapy is from infant all the way up to elderly. So there's so many different locations and settings that you get to experience, from our parents' age to our infants. And being a mom, it was so important to me to really be able to dive into those areas, knowing that one day at the time of going into education that children were my passion, and I knew one day I wanted to be a mom. So OT something that really drove home to me, and I'm so glad I picked that as an opportunity.
How old was this boy that made you think about?
Yeah,
OT?
he was in kindergarten. So he was in one of my kindergarten classes. He had received birth to 3 services, which is that in-home early intervention. And then with starting kindergarten was also receiving that support in school. And it just, that's the perfect age. I love the little ones. Any of our kindergarten and under is like the prime age I love working with. So it just, it's something that's just a huge piece of your heart that you feel with working with those children.
Yeah, I can feel that really a lot when you talk about it, even your eyes sparkle. Yeah. You've worked with children in so many different environments, birth to 3, homes, hospitals, schools, and outpatient sensory clinics. What have all of those different experiences taught you about the way children learn and develop?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is being able to see them in all settings. You see and understand the true wraparound picture for a child. When we're working in the home, we're working so closely with the parent. We're working with early infancy ages. Then you go into schools and you're seeing a totally different environment where we're not seeing the parents as much, right? Because they're in school, so we're now working with teachers and that student. Then we get to a clinic setting and they're coming in and they're working on a totally different set of skills, and we're seeing and starting to put all those pieces together. Here's the education I know about everything in the home setting to the school setting, now to the clinic, and you can really look at that child from start to finish and really understand what's happening around them. What are all those stepping stones they need? It builds on all those pieces of development because you've seen every step along the way as that child goes, and can really start to look at all the different settings you've been in and really apply all of those to help families and to help that child. So it's really nice to kind of see that growth and development, again, from little all the way till they're older, and knowing all those different pieces of their environment that so greatly affect them in their development.
No, it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Something you mentioned that really stood out to me is celebrating the little victories that can actually feel like huge milestones. Something you mentioned that really stood out to me is celebrating the little victories that can actually feel like huge milestones to a child and their family. Can you give us an example of what a little victory might look like from a developmental perspective?
For our littles, our infants, our biggest thing is we get stuck on a lot of the developmental milestones of rolling, crawling, walking. So when we get to see those little wins, parents get so excited. It's something we look forward to achieving with them. And if for some reason a child's not meeting those milestones, the moment they do, it just brings all of that hard work and excitement together. I think my biggest thing is because we're working so much with children and families in our everyday life of all of their skills that they're learning, from fine motor to gross motor to their daily living skills. When children come home and they're able to produce something that they haven't done, they were able to write their name, they were able to tie their shoe, they were able to put their jacket on all by themselves. They're so proud, and they come to mom or dad, or they come to the therapist and they're like, I did it. And it's that rewarding feeling of you're seeing them finally develop that independence, and you know that you've helped to get them to that point. And it's just, the energy that our children give off, the excitement that just warms our hearts, because we're so proud of them and they love to share that experience with us.
Oh, that must be for you as a professional, it must be very rewarding when you see like they finally achieving something. And you've spent years understanding child development professionally, but now you're also a mom. Did becoming a mother change the way you look at a child development, or even the advice you give other parents?
Yes and no. It's so funny. I think we're all so guilty as a parent that when it's our own child, it's almost like all of our knowledge goes out the window, right? We tend to be so much more lax and laid back about things, and we look to our friends and our family to be like, well, what do you think? Because we're so used to doing that in our daily life. But on the flip side, I absolutely am using the knowledge that I have and integrating things in my son's everyday life that I know will benefit him as he grows, and just seeing those little wins and applying it to the knowledge that I have to know, like, wow, he's doing amazing. And that it's just such a rewarding feeling to know that we're setting him up for great success. But definitely as a mom, I let things slide for sure.
I think it's the same thing. Like before I became a mom, I was a babysitter. So for me, it was very easy. I was like, okay, I'm just taking care of the kids. And when they cry, I call the mom. When they want something that I can't provide, I call the mom. And at night, it was not me. It was the mom. So when I got pregnant, I was like, okay, it's going to be easy. I'm a babysitter. I mean, what can be different, right? But then it's completely different because you are, as a mom, you don't sleep at all. You don't, you are the person somebody's going to call.
Yes,
if
exactly.
The kid needs something.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure it's something like very similar that
Absolutely.
you feel like as a professional you know everything, but when it's your child, it's completely different.
Especially when you're in the field, you're working with that all day and you're coming home to your child and you want to relax, you want to be there with them, and you don't want to put that pressures of all these things I know as a professional I'm now going to instill with my child. So it's finding that happy medium, right? We're all human, we all love that downtime, and I think it's so important for our child to understand and see us as a loving parent and not always sticking to those exact things that maybe we're doing in our day-to-day profession. They need that.
Yeah, I think you need to, I don't know, I feel like sometimes you need to hold your horses, hold yourself to not apply everything you know to your child, because it's something you do like for a few minutes, maybe hours, when you have a session.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So when it's your child, you want to do like all the time, but then you need to, that's not yet. So, and I think one of the hardest thing about parenting today is knowing what's actually normal, especially when we constantly see milestone charts, social media, and comparing our children to other kids. Actually, social media I think is the worst, because you see different like pages, the same information but with different like information. So how much variation is actually normal when it comes to developmental milestones?
Yeah, social media is huge. I think it can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. I think it has so many great resources and activities and ideas and things that you can do with your child. So that is such a great resource when you know and have a background of something that maybe you need to work on with your child. Social media can really show you those through short video clips and pictures of how can I set my child up for success. But like you said, on the flip side, it can be the opposite. We get so stuck on, oh my gosh, my child's not doing this yet. Oh, this one's doing this, my child should. And it's so important to know that children all grow at very different speeds and different levels, and it's totally okay. And I think the biggest thing is our early infancy is there's so much happening at that time when they're developing in such short moments, and they're learning and taking in so much information, but we're also hyper aware of everything that's going on, and we want to do the best in that moment. And the biggest things we always see parents comparing are the milestones of rolling, crawling, standing, and walking, right? Those are those big ones we always look at.
Talking to?
And talking to, absolutely. And so that's the biggest thing I always like to talk to parents about is there's always going to be a little bit of a difference. Some children, it's a couple months difference where you might see those milestones achieve. One of the biggest things is those really early, the sucking, the swallow, the breathing patterns. Those are detrimental for a child, a very early infant, that they're not meeting those. We're typically looking at a more intensive program. They're getting support services, and that's needed to survive. So those are, of course, there's no room for gaps in regards to when they're achieving those. But as we get into things like those fine motor, gross motor, and speech milestones, there's going to be a varying level. And I always tell parents that we want to know that so much is happening in the brain at that very moment, so that what happens is we see a lot of children start to do a lot of their speech. We're starting to see a lot of sounds. They're starting to get social, but maybe they're the child that sits on the floor. They're not really engaging in the gross motor play. They're not crawling yet. Maybe they're not walking yet, but their language is really starting to really show. And then on the flip side, we have those children who are super active. They're the early crawlers, the early walkers, but maybe they're the later talkers, right? But what's happening in the brain is we're using our brain in so many different ways as an infant, and so they're taking in all of their surrounding, they're applying it, and what we see is where one of those skills increases, the other's a little behind, and then the other one catches up, so they don't run parallel. And I think us as parents, we're like, they should be talking and walking, or we should see them growing like this. And it just doesn't always happen like that, because they're using all of that power to really focus in on maybe that language. So their gross motor is a little behind. Or vice versa. Like I said, they're doing really great gross motor stuff, but their language is a little bit behind. But eventually it levels out because of how the brain is working and processing. It's hard to do all of that at the same time. So it's certainly normal to see a little bit of a gap in regards to which one might come more than the other. But my biggest thing is everything takes time, and comparing it, every child is different. So you know the best about your own child. So if something seems off, if something seems too delayed, I feel like they should be doing something by now. Those are always the moments I say, reach out, ask, because there's no harm in having a child, evaluated or seen to just know, are they making progress? And sometimes as parents, we think we might be doing all of the things to get them there, but we don't know everything. And sometimes just listening and hearing from someone else in that specific profession gives us that background knowledge to really structure what we're doing every day with them a little bit different, to help boost those skills a little bit more, because we tend to hyper focus on one specific area. I feel like it takes sometimes somebody else telling me something to like, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't realize I'm doing this different, or I should be doing this. So, I think it's so important to know that there's no one right way to do it. And our children, they all get there at some point, right? So we do get stuck on the numbers and we get stuck on the ages, but it all tends to level out at some point. And that's what we're here for in therapy, is having those conversations and helping see where that child may be falling and what are those interventions that can maybe boost them up to get them there. But time will tell. Some children do just take a little bit longer for certain areas of their skill set to grow.
That makes total sense. My daughter, she's 17 now, but she started talking. She walked, she was 10 months. But she started talk, making phrases and everything. She was 4 years old. But I took her for a lot of evaluations and everything. And the results were always because she's bilingual. She's learning Portuguese and English at the same time. So her brain doesn't know which one to talk. She could understand everything, but she couldn't talk. And it drove me crazy at the time, because I knew she wanted something and she couldn't tell me. But then came my second son. He's 15 now, but he started talking, I think he was 7 or 8 months, but he started walking at 13 months. And then there's my 4 years old. He walked at 9 months and he talked at 10 months. So he's very ahead of everything. So he was okay, I have never experienced that before. It's all new. So definitely.
That's a perfect example of how much of a variety there is across every child.
And all of them, it's normal. Now they are all talking and walking. It's normal.
And you brought up a great point about a child being bilingual. My son also is in a home with Ukrainian speaking language, and it's so interesting to me on the skills that they're picking up, and they're just a sponge at that age. So, sometimes they get it jumbled right early on, but those skills they're able to apply in life, it's amazing to see how they're able to target out each of those different languages and understand it.
Do your husband talk only Ukrainian with him?
No, he does English and Ukrainian, but our family members are Ukrainian only speaking. So he really gets an equal, I would say, exposure to both languages, and he totally understands it. And he even picked up some really great Ukrainian language early on, which is really great to see. I don't speak it fluently, so it'll be interesting when he gets a little older what will happen.
Can you get
absolutely? Yeah, it's amazing.
That's gonna be amazing. It's bilingual kids. If any parent that speak another language, they need to speak, because I see a lot of people that have parents that speak another language, but they never spoke their first language with the kids. They only speak English. Why? I think
Yes, and infants is the perfect time to be, introducing that. Sometimes we think it might delay them, it might set them up for failure by integrating that in, but it's actually the opposite. Yes, exactly like you said, you're going to see maybe a little bit of a lag time with certain things, but that doesn't mean that they're not picking up all of those skills. They are going to apply it so much more. And I think of us right? When we're learning languages older, I'm like, I don't remember anything anymore. Our children remember that. So the exposure is such a really great opportunity for them.
My daughter, she speaks fluently English, of course, Portuguese, and French.
Yeah.
She knows like I think Portuguese helped her with the French because there are a little like words that are similar. But I mean, it's the perfect time, right, to start.
Absolutely.
So I think every parent that speaks another language.
Yes, definitely.
And how can parents tell the difference between my child is developing at their own pace and maybe this is something I should ask a professional about? What's the point where you would recommend for them to search for professional?
Trust your gut. You know your child best. So a parent, when they're starting to say, I think something might be a little delayed, I think something might be wrong, if you're getting that feeling, then ask for help, seek it out. That you always want to go, and be an advocate for your child, right? They can't speak up for themselves, so they're relying on you to help. And the worst that somebody's going to say is, no, they're doing great. And again, children grow rapidly in those early months. So you might go when a child is young and 2 months later you're going for something different because they're achieving so many milestones in just a short few months. So I always tell parents it's so important to trust your gut. There might not be something wrong, but then deep down you sought it out, you looked for it. Typically what we see is that child develops that skill pretty quickly after they've then sought out help of some sort. But trust your gut. You do know them, and I think it's so important to educate yourself, take in all the learning opportunities that you can, and be selective, right? Like you said, social media, it's hard because there's so many different pathways. You don't know what things right, what things wrong, and which things to apply. But if you can help educate yourself and continue to implement some of the things you do learn and you start to see change, then you know that those things you're applying are helping. And if you're trying some new things and it's not working, those are other signs to say, I think I need some other extra help to come in and help me and see how can I best help my child move forward.
Okay. And are there things parents commonly worry about that are actually completely normal parts of child development?
Yeah, I would say, as a young toddler boy mom, it's that boy energy I see a lot. Is this normal for my child to be so wild and crazy and crashing into things or getting frustrated and getting upset? Our children are learning every day. And I think that's the hardest thing is it something more behavioral? Is it something deeper down? But in the early stages, it's so normal. They're exploring, they're learning new things. It's really important to know that they don't have all the skill sets to be able to cope, to be able to do the normal things that we think as parents they should know. Typically, we see them much far ahead of where they are. And again, partially because of social media, we put this kind of expectation and norm for them to meet. But no, I think that there's so much that you can see and do. And it's, again, every child is going to present in a different manner. My biggest thing that I see the biggest hiccup to know is that walking piece. That's where we do see that there tends to be, even like you mentioned with your children, a pretty big discrepancy of when a child is walking. And a lot of parents do get hung up on that, but it's normal, like I said, that there's going to be a variation of when these skills are being achieved.
Yeah, I remember when I had my children, we didn't have like social media. Of course, there was social media at the point. I think it was Facebook was the hit at the time, or maybe I don't know, MySpace or something. But we had books like first year, second year, whatever, was like books. So that's where I was looking for like, oh, she should be doing this, or maybe she's delayed or something. And what I see now, it's that social media sometimes make us diagnose our kid without seeing a professional.
Absolutely.
Oh, my kid is a hyper, or my kid has this or that. And sometimes there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just
Absolutely. Yeah. And think about you and I and everyone around us. We all have different likes and dislikes and mannerisms of what we do. And there are some children that are going to have more energy than others or develop that later on in life. So there's no one way that a child develops. And social media will definitely think and make us look into things that aren't there. And I think it's always that looking at which professional do I go to, do I try to do that myself, or it is helpful to just get that extra advice and support to know then targeting what do I do with my child to help them further develop those skills. We do look to try to, of course, do it ourselves first, but sometimes maybe we're pinpointing the wrong thing. There's maybe a root cause of the problem that we're not getting at because we don't understand that bigger picture that some of the therapists may know about.
Do you think the kid pediatrician could help?
Yeah, I mean, they're the first level of any of our early intervention. But what I'll always say is there's a wide range of what's out there, and no pediatrician is going to know everything, right? No professional is going to know everything. And so oftentimes they're the first ones to send a referral to say, yeah, I think you can go ahead and try speech therapy or try occupational therapy. But we do find that they may not be the first ones saying it. It may only be if the parent is bringing that up at the appointment. So as a parent, that is why it's so important to be an advocate and speak up and say, no, I really think something's off, or I really would love to get this checked. Because sometimes if you don't say anything, your pediatrician may not bring that to the table. Again, you know your child best. Your pediatrician's not with you all day, every day. So they may not think of asking you certain questions or picking up on certain things you're seeing in the house or the community. And that's why it's so important to be an advocate. And if you think something's off, bring it up to your pediatrician because you're going to know them best and know something's not right, or I just want that second opinion to know I'm doing okay and they're doing okay.
And on the other side, are there developmental signs parents sometimes overlook because they assume their child will just grow out of them?
Yeah, there is a wide range of things. One of the most common I see is around eating. Picky eating tendencies, difficulty with food. We often say it's a phase. They don't want to eat, right? I already see it. We see stages where our children really like certain foods and then they don't. But what's happening is sometimes there's a significant underlying issue, whether that's a sensory concern in regards to certain textures. Maybe there's a structural concern, all in regards to their mouth, their structure of how it is, and it's actually causing it to be difficult for them to eat foods. And then because of that, they develop behaviors, or there's actual food intolerances and bigger things that are happening, but a child can't share that to us. So we often see those avoidance of certain foods and picky eating tendencies to happen. And as a parent, we tend to push it off and say, oh, they're just picky, we'll just stick with these foods. But then it becomes very difficult to introduce those new foods to them because they've gotten stuck on such a minimal selection of foods that they've learned to know these are my comfort foods. And as they get older, it can become harder and harder to break those habits and integrate new foods if we don't address those issues early on. So certainly feeding is, I think, something that we tend to overlook. Other areas that we overlook are just general social skills, picking up on social cues and how they're playing with other children. There's a wide range in what we might see of that, why I talked about wild boy energy, but if our children are running and crashing and bumping into things, are we thinking that maybe they're just having all this extra energy, or are they actually struggling a little bit with their body awareness and knowing, and maybe those things are a little bit more of a red flag that we should be looking into. And then we see a lot when we hear the word sensory is our children are maybe sensitive to certain smells, sounds, maybe fabrics, things that are touching them. They don't want to engage in messy play. It's so important that if we're seeing those things, how do we go about doing interventions to expose them and get them comfortable with that? But what are some of the underlying concerns that we could be seeing why are they starting to be aversive to these types of things? So the sooner we notice those things, the sooner we can intervene and support that. So hopefully those are things they can outgrow and achieve. So certainly those are a couple of the main things that we see lately as things that we tend to overlook, and we think it's fine, it is what it is. Because also us as adults, we all have our own sensory quirks of things we like and we don't like. And I think it's understanding is how much of an impact is it making in their day-to-day. And if it's something that's really distressing to them, it's something that interferes with the things they do every day, it's certainly worth looking at, because it's only setting them up to become more frustrated, more upset, and then we see all of the plethora of effects that might come out from that.
Yeah. My daughter, she has a lot of food. She's very picky eater. She hates banana. Like the texture, the smell. If we eat banana at home, she's like, oh my gosh, it's disgusting. It's stinky. She can't. And clothes too. She has a lot of textures that she doesn't like it. But I mean, she's fine.
Yeah, we all also have our quirks. Like I said, there's something in each and every one of us that we love and then we don't love. So it's so common.
That's true. And this is a topic that's very close to us at MiniTown, because our entire concept is built around children playing. When we watch a child simply playing, what is actually happening developmentally that adults might not realize?
Play is everything for a child. We don't see the small wins and the little things that they're learning and they're taking in, but when they're playing, they're taking in everything around them. They're watching their surrounding peers, even if they're not at an age of interacting with them, they're watching and seeing what they're doing. They're watching us as parents. What are we doing with certain items? Why are we using it? And they're applying that to how they're playing. Every experience we bring to them in their environment, they're taking something in, the sounds, the smell, everything. And we may think, oh, they're not learning, they're not doing anything, but their brain is developing so rapidly. And little do we know, they're making all of those connections. And as they develop, we're starting to see it come to light. I think one thing I think about all the time is our phones, right? We're glued to our phones, so we see that. You know, you can not have a phone in a room with an infant for the longest time, and somehow they figure out how to use it, right? They grab it, they gravitate towards it. My son will pick up random objects and put them up to his ear and just start talking, because we may not have the phone out all the time, and the moments we think they're not watching, they're watching, they're taking it in, but they're also then seeing, what are we doing and how do I mimic what they're doing, right? And I just always say we are such big role models for our children, so they are taking in everything and you say and you do all the time. And so play is huge. We have to give opportunities for our children to play, because that's just how they're growing and they're applying that knowledge. It's wild. It's just so great to watch, I think. And even as a mom, I just love seeing what they decide to do with all the toys and the opportunities that they're presented with.
Does your boy have any like specific toy that he loves the most?
Yeah, music toys, everything. You know, music is so great for children, and I just love how excited he gets. He loves to interact, but it gets them moving their body and doing things. You know, and even the language, the sounds, and integrating that is huge. You know, we're in a world where there's so many toys. It can be overwhelming, because it's just, they add up so quickly. Your house is full of them, or you're at a store and you're just overwhelmed by which is the right one. And every child likes different toys. They migrate towards certain types of toys, certain colors, certain sounds, certain anything. And so it's so hard to know which are the things they're going to like and not like.
My 4 years old, he likes Transformers, like anything that you can transform. Oh, it's a letter, but can also be a robot. It can also be a dinosaur. So he likes to put things together and make another thing.
Yep. Those are such great things in toys, because again, it's that play, that imagination, is that child's now being able to understand one toy can do so many things. And it also holds their attention, right? It's not just a quick one and done thing. They're sitting there, they're trying, they're using their skills to do problem solving without us even thinking. So going back to play, you know, they're learning all these skills by just one simple toy or one opportunity that we don't realize how much they're gaining. And repetition is huge, right? Children, constant exposure to the same same activities, the same scenery, helps them develop that memory, the association to what they're doing, how to be able to then produce the toy and then become successful. And when they are successful with that toy, they're so excited. So I think that also is something that we forget as parents, that repeat exposure is really great, right? We get sick of it. We might get bored of the same song or the same toy over and over and over again playing, but for them, it's huge.
Okay, good to know. And when kids are climbing, jumping, playing pretend, cooking in a little kitchen, shopping at the grocery store, building things, and interacting with other children, what kinds of developmental skills are actually being practiced through all of that?
Yeah, you're hitting so many skills. One of the biggest things in the areas of children development is the types of play. So what I love about MiniTown is all of the stations that you have set up. You may have young children playing in those stations and they're not interacting, or they're working on a certain activity and station right next to another child. But in that moment, that parallel play is a vital piece of their childhood development, is they're doing an activity that someone is doing right next to them. And eventually as they develop that cooperative play where then they start engaging in that activity together. And so there's varying levels of stages of development of play. And those are all building blocks to kind of get to that piece of cooperative play where now I start to interact and apply those skills with other children. But the biggest thing that I love at our younger ages is the imaginative play, right? So that's what I talked about a little bit earlier, is them being able to go into a kitchen and pretend and mock and do all these really great things based on what they're seeing around them, what they're seeing in the home setting, what they're seeing with their children around them playing. And having that imagination is huge, and that is what helps that brain develop even more, is applying those skills. So MiniTown's great because there's so many opportunities for them to do that, either in an individualized, just them doing it themselves, or with their parent, to then starting to do it and apply it with other children around them.
One thing that I really wanted for MiniTown was not having any electronic toys like screens or anything. I really wanted something very old school, the kids could actually play without any screens, distraction, or anything. We actually have a screen there, but we never turned that on because why?
They see so much of it, on a daily basis. It's so good to have those opportunities where there isn't any of that available to them.
Yeah, it's hard because, like I said, our phones are always available for the kids. So it's better if they can take a break sometimes and enjoy themselves, pretending, playing, or doing something else. And how important is unstructured play, where adults aren't constantly telling children what to do or how they're supposed to play?
So important. We live in a world where we're so fast-paced, and we are always jumping in as a parent because we think they need help, or we should just help them and show them, or we need to move and we need to get out of the house, so I'm just going to do it for you, and I'm going to jump in, or I'm going to show you. But those moments of unstructured, where we don't jump in, is so important for them to do things over and over again. They learn by their mistakes, they problem solve, they create that imagination to play, and they learn to be successful and independent. If we're always jumping in and setting up specific things for them to do, they start to rely on us, right? They're always going to look for us to come and fix it for them, do it for them, show us what to do. And I think it's so important that we sit back and we always make sure we wait things out, so we give them those opportunities to be successful and to do things on their own and not rely on us, but how can we model to them and show them and support them in those moments we do, versus just doing it for them.
Yeah. It's hard, actually.
It is.
Yeah,
it's
because
harder than
we
you
always want to jump in and do everything. So, yeah, but I need to take this as an advice for myself. What about playing with other children? What do kids learn from each other that we can't necessarily recreate or teach them as adults?
The relationships with like-minded or similar age children is so important. We see a lot with children, they're around adults, they have interactions that they establish with adults, but it doesn't necessarily get applied directly to those of the same age peers. So having social opportunities where they can play with other children are so important because they develop the skills like turn taking and sharing and, again, using that imagination in playing with someone else that is just so different than playing with a parent or a caregiver or a grandparent. And I do think that those moments are crucial. And even if a child's not in school, what are those social opportunities we can provide to them? It doesn't even have to be a play date where they're, playing always directly with someone. Something like MiniTown is maybe they're going there with mom, dad, or grandma, and they're by themselves, but they're surrounded by kids and they're taking all of it in. They may not be directly interacting with those other children, but they're seeing and they're watching what are those children doing? And they're going to pick up on those things and they're going to become more comfortable and confident to start engaging in social play when they're provided with opportunities to engage in social play.
That's great. And parents often immediately step in when children disagree over a toy or something doesn't go their way. Is there development value in allowing children to navigate some of those small conflicts themselves before we jump in?
Absolutely. Same thing, we tend to always just jump in because it's easier, or we don't want a big scene, we don't want a tantrum. But our children don't necessarily have the skill set to cope, to apply different methods of understanding to their understanding. So we may think it's something so small that they're having a tantrum or they're upset about, but for them it's huge. They don't yet, we have to help teach them those skills to how to cope and how to be okay. So we can't just do it for them and we can't force them to do that. We have to help them acquire those skills to apply in those moments of frustration or distress. What I do see a lot of times that more larger tantrums or frustration occurs can come down to speech is they start to become frustrated because they're trying to tell us as parents, this is what I want, or I'm not ready yet, or I feel a certain way, but they just don't yet have those skills or communication to share that. So they get so frustrated because they just want us to understand and we don't know what they want, right? So it comes out in more of that emotional distress. So the more that we can model and support them and coach them through those versus just giving in, I think it's so important because it's a big concept of emotional regulation and coping for our older kids that we do need to teach those skills for our little ones because it's not innate for them to just be born with, but it's how we do it and how we intervene that is so important.
But one thing, but I mean, we can teach our kid, but we don't never know if the other kid involved in the conflict, it's Correct. Also been taught.
Correct.
How to do
right.
it. So.
It's all about it's our parenting, right? How are we intervening? The biggest thing is we don't know our other children around us and our parents and what's normal and not normal or what's expected or unexpected for those families. But the more that we can teach those scenarios to our children, even when they're young, will help them develop what they need to know and be comfortable and okay and how to apply that with other children. It is such a hard concept because we can't control other children and other parents and what they do. But the more that we can educate and help our child, it helps them through those scenarios as they get older.
Yeah, even like when they are already grown up. As parents, sometimes it's honestly just easier and faster to do things for children. But how important is letting kids struggle a little while they're learning to do something independently?
Yeah, it goes back to some of the things we just talked about is we tend to jump in and do it for them, but that's just, we want to develop that independence for them, right? We want to model. My biggest thing is you can always help start to do something and then let them finish it off so they feel like they're successful. So we call it chaining. If you make them do it from the very beginning and it's a skill that maybe is too hard for them, they're going to get really frustrated and just shut down. But if we set them up for success and we do almost all of it, but the little last bit of it, then they do it, they're going to feel like they just did it themselves and they're going to feel amazing. And then you slowly just peel that back. So eventually they're doing it on their own because they do need us for certain times and certain activities, but we don't always want to be fully doing it for them. We want to teach that autonomy. We want them to develop that independence, but we want them to be successful. So when we are intervening, part of things I always look at, are we asking them to do something that's too difficult for them? So us as parents, how do we provide better opportunities that are more at their level developmentally, for their age, for their skill set, that helps them become confident and successful? If they're always getting frustrated and they're looking us for help, it's likely that that activity is a little too hard for them. So how do we help scale that back and make it a little bit easier for them, or look to activities or tasks that are more at their level?
Okay. And when a young child is having a huge reaction or meltdown over something that seems incredibly small to us, what's actually happening developmentally?
Yeah, something that seems so little to us is huge for children, right? They don't have the concepts and understanding that we do as adults. And again, they haven't necessarily learned those coping strategies and communication skills to tell us what's really going on. So their world is just so different for ours. So we have to understand those, what we see as little things really are big things to our children, and how do we recognize that and acknowledge that to them, and then teach them and help them through the strategies to get through those moments.
One thing that I always see at MiniTown, it's when parents want to leave, but the kid doesn't want to, so then they need to drag the kids out of the place, crying, having a meltdown. So is there any advice would you give to these parents, how to take the kids from MiniTown without like getting this tantrum and everything?
Absolutely. I think it shows that they love being there, and MiniTown is such an amazing place, and leaving is hard. I always suggest is that preparation we do for kids. So many of our children, need to understand the concepts of maybe timers, or we're going to play for 5 more minutes, or using visual schedules. Once we're done here, we're going to go home, or we're going to go to the grocery store, and help them understand what's ahead. Our children are visual learners, so when we just say, we're going here, we're doing this, we're doing that, it doesn't mean anything to them, right? That's already out of their brain. Yeah. They're rarely what's here and now in the moment. So how do we show them and reinforce what's coming next so they know what's expected? So oftentimes it's we've got to go now, and they're not ready yet, right? Mm-hmm. Their brain hasn't processed, I'm leaving. And how do we set them up to say, this is how much time we have left, this is what we're going to be going to do next, and help them transition out with a greater success than just leaving kind of instantly, right? Their brain is in full kid play mode and learning mode, that when they're asked to leave and turn that off so quickly, it can be very hard for them.
Great advice. I'm going to use that with my own son. Can something adults interpret as a bad behavior sometimes actually be a child communicating that they are overwhelmed or don't yet have the skills to regulate themselves?
Definitely. Our children, again, we're the voice of them for a while. So until they develop those skills, we're always as parents trying to figure out what is it that they want? What are they looking for? How can I help? And a lot of times when there's deficits in communication, or they just haven't established those skills yet, it comes out in tantrums and frustration. So the more that, again, we can do as visual presenters, I think that helps a lot. Typical, my son even right now is just points to everything and is, asking. And if we're just saying the words, it doesn't mean anything. But if we're pulling something out, we're showing him, and we're reinforcing it with the word, we're trying to teach him that language to pair to it. And when he sees the item, he knows that that is or is not what I'm looking for. So I think we really have to kind of, again, step back and get down on their level and see what is it that's maybe causing that inner frustration, and how can I intervene without doing too much, but also being able to acknowledge with what they're feeling in the moment.
Okay. And are we sometimes expecting young children to control their emotions at a level that simply isn't developmentally realistic yet?
Yeah, we are. I think, we are in a society where there's so much around coping skills, emotional regulation, and they're higher level skills. And we expect them to be able to transition and do these skills quicker than maybe they're built to be. I do think what's really great, these concepts are being brought down to levels of that of a young child. So toys and activities that are starting to teach what are these strategies or what are things I can use in these moments are geared towards more children of that a younger age, but they're concepts, again, that they just haven't yet tapped into. So our expectation tends to be very different than what they're truly able to do at that age.
And do you think children today are getting enough opportunities to just play, explore, and even be bored?
No, we've lost that. My biggest thing is with screen time, we see so much exposure to the iPad, the computer, and the best thing for a child to do is play and have those opportunities to be outside, to be around other children. Most of their skills are going to come from those opportunities. And especially when it comes to physical play, gross motor, fine motor skills, those are developed through those opportunities. When we are doing a lot more screen time, we're not getting those experiences. And we do see a huge gap with our children. I think there's a time and place for having those technology pieces come into play as our children get older, but they're meant to be outside. They're meant to be in opportunities to truly be a kid and develop those skills. So I do think we've moved away from all of the opportunities that I think you and I experienced growing up and just being a kid outside. And again, we're in a world where there's so many toys, there's so many things, but they don't need all that, especially in their early moments. I think every parent you talk to, my son's favorite toy is a spatula and a bowl. Everything that's in your household, you can somehow incorporate into that imaginative play, music. You don't have to have all of the toys and places to go to. Yeah. There's so much you can do within your home with what you have.
My 15 years old, he's always bored. He's like, oh, I'm bored. Well, do something. Go outside. Call your friends. I don't know. Do something. He's like, yeah, I'm bored. Oh my gosh, it's hard because I think sometimes I feel guilt that I need to entertain them all the time, but that's not like I shouldn't,
I think
right?
It's okay to be bored sometimes, right? I think going back to we live in such a busy lifestyle environment where we're so used to always doing things. We're go, go, go. So then when we have those moments of opportunity where there isn't anything to do, there isn't anything planned, we don't know what to do with ourselves. And it's okay to just relax and have more downtime. We all need that I know even myself, when I get those, I feel like I need to do something because we just are exposed to a very fast-paced environment. But I think we're trying to reteach our children what those moments are because they're just surrounded by constant ability to do and go places and do things that we forget what it's like to slow down for a little while.
Again, about social media, what I see a lot, it's those people that, because I wake up at 5 in the morning and then I run and then I plunge and then I go to the gym and then I eat health. I cook for the entire day because I need to eat health, and then I read a book that makes us feel like, okay, we're lacking something here because I'm not that productive. So I need to be more productive. I need to produce more. I need to do. So sometimes when those kind of videos show to me, I put not interested because those make me feel bad sometimes. Because like I said, sometimes I just want to lay down. I just want to watch TV with my husband, talk, and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be on my phone working. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be there, looking, talking, relaxing. So again, I think social media is part of the problem that the kids today doesn't have this kind of bored time. Right?
Absolutely.
We obviously have to talk about screens. Oh, that's what you're talking right now. Is the biggest issue actually screen time itself, or what screen time may be replacing, like movement, conversation, boredom, imagination, play? It's basically
all of the above. It's what is it replacing, right? If our children are engaging in that, are those opportunities where they can be moving their bodies and engaging in social opportunities versus being on the technology. The other thing is, what are they playing and watching? Are those items that they're picking and choosing for TV shows or computer games very overstimulating, right, for our brain? And when we're kind of locked in and we're doing that for hours at end, what is that doing to our attention and our skills that we're developing in a crucial state of development? And then the other side of that is how long are we using them and until what time? Because what we forget about, unlike us adults who can literally fall asleep watching TV at night, our children, when they're exposed to technology, it has such a long-lasting effect. So a lot of our children who struggle sleeping at night, they wake throughout the night. There's some type of sleep disruption, could be because they were on screens earlier in the day, whether that be right before bed or even hours and hours before dinner. Our children all have a different way of processing all of that information, and some it just lingers much longer. And it's so important is when and what are they watching and playing with, because it really can impact. And again, looking at every child functions differently. All of our brains are wired differently. So how much screen time for you may be different for me, and what does that affect? Speaking of coffee, it's just like caffeine, right? Our levels of caffeine that we consume, some people can go right to bed and it has no effect, and others, they have a half a cup of coffee and they're up for hours. So it's that same concept that everybody responds to that in their body so differently. So we kind of have to look at all aspects of technology and apply it and see what are those root causes.
Also, there are shows that it's horrible for kids, and they're very easy. Like Prime has this Vladimir. I don't know if I've ever watched.
I haven't gotten into all the kids shows yet because my toddler isn't watching any yet.
You don't want him to watch because it's all about consumption, candy, and rewarding. Like if you do that right, I will give you a gift, or I give you something. So it's everything that we don't want our kids to do. So it's horrible. I have to, every time my son is watching something, I need to watch with him, and then, oh, that's not what you're watching. Then I have to just block.
Well, and that goes back to our children are so much smarter than we think. They know how to navigate that technology, and they know how to find things. And there's so much that's out there that we have no idea what they're talking about or what they're referring to on these shows, that it's just so hard to control. I think any parent, there's just a lot that is out there right now.
The show was just on YouTube Kids, and we don't have YouTube Kids at home because I know it can lead to things that we don't want them to watch. But now it's on Prime. It's like so easy to access. It's so horrible. You're gonna soon you're gonna be there and you're gonna see it's so horrible. You don't want your son watching this. When we're talking about getting children ready for preschool or kindergarten, what skills actually matter most? Are we sometimes pay attention too much on academics and not enough on independence, social skills, and emotional development?
Yeah, the curriculum in our schools has changed greatly over the years. One of the biggest things when I was in education is I loved the phrase, the process, not the product, right? And that is something that, what are those skills that our children are learning along the way? It's not about the product they're producing. So when I think of the school setting, right, we're making a snowman. Our children are being shown a model of a snowman. This is what we're making today. But what's so important is it's not the outcome for everybody's snowman to look exactly like what the teacher is showing. It's about what is that process for them. If their snowman wants to be purple, if their snowman is to have 10 arms, that's important to them. And it's that process of what they're doing to create that snowman and all the skills that they're applying to make 10 arms, that's so important. It's not always about that outcome. And so I think of that when we're going into school, it's all about the process. What are the things that we're setting them up for? How do we help them to be independent, but be okay with transitioning away from mom or dad to be able to enter in? The more social opportunities that we give them before they're entering in school allows them to be feeling more confident and excited to be around peers. So it's all about the opportunities and engaging with them, being a great role model, showing them different things that they can do, being creative at home as best you can to give them those opportunities to be set up for success. Our expectations are high for our children and what they maybe need to be knowing before they go into kindergarten. And as a parent, that puts a lot of pressure on you as, how do I do all this at home to get them there? But the more that we just follow them and that normal development of play and socialization, and encouraging and being there for them, being present, those are those opportunities that are going to get them to be there, right?
Be successful.
Yeah.
That's cool. And if you could change one thing about the way we approach childhood today, what would it be?
I think it's the stepping back piece. I've definitely seen where we intervene too quickly as parents, and we set high standards based again on what we're seeing around us or how the expectation, like you said, the push more for academics is there. It puts more pressure on us as a parent to kind of do more and show them more and expect more. And I really would say is just stepping back and like just being a great role model, being present, providing the best opportunity that you can for them, but not setting such high expectations, because then children are going to feel like they're failing, right? They're being held to a high expectation. And we see that come out in how children react and respond versus how do we set up for success by giving them opportunities that are at their level.
So we're completely switching subjects right now because I can't have you sitting here and not talk about the other side of Caitlin. You also created Coffee in Connecticut, where you share Connecticut coffee shops, create maps to help people find them, and tell some of the stories behind Connecticut's cafe and coffee industry. But now that I know the story behind it, I think it's even better. You and your husband actually met over coffee at the beginning of COVID, and coffee became your thing. Tell me the story, and how did that eventually turn into Coffee in Connecticut?
Yeah, my husband and I met at a coffee shop at the time of COVID starting. Of course, as everyone knows, everything was closed down, but we could grab a coffee to go. So my husband and I would just pick a coffee shop, grab coffee, sit outside wherever we were going, and we would travel around just to experience the state together. And we were always looking for coffee shops. We'd Google coffee shop near me. We didn't want a Dunkin', we didn't want a Starbucks, and we wanted to go and support local shops, especially at that time when so many of them were struggling to stay open. And so I had said, Google is wonderful, but it takes a lot to try to find, and they miss a lot of spots on the map. And I just wanted something that was easy for me to pull up no matter where I was going. Coming from a beer industry of growing up in Vermont, we had what was called like a brewery trail. And so it was a hot thing to go to all the breweries, and you followed a map and you kind of knew all the spots to go. And I loved that concept that I thought, we're seeing such a huge uptick in the coffee industry. How great would it be to have a map that we could follow, especially at that point. Now we're developing work from home or remote work, so where people were going and trying to find places to work that weren't at home, coffee shops being a huge one. People needed new spots to go to. Students studying in college, they needed a different scene. I had been there, and it was something that I wanted to create a resource. So out of the blue, one day I started making these maps, and it really took off, and people have found it to be so helpful when they're traveling through the state. If they live here, we're always updating them. I myself am always using them when I'm traveling because I can't remember everything, and just seeing what's near me. But it's also been able to provide an opportunity for a lot of our local coffee shops to be seen, because if you just Google, they don't show up on the map or they're forgotten. And so I've just grown to love it. And my husband and I, it gives us something to do on the weekends. Now that we have our son, we're going out and finding new places to explore, and sharing the stories that I just think don't get heard every day, which is really great.
Have you tried ChatGPT, like AI, to find new coffee shops?
No, I don't use ChatGPT much at all. I know it's still so new right now in the industry, but no, I'm really up to speed on all more the local and announcements and everything that it gets updated as far as things that are opening and closing. So that's why we update the maps pretty much every 2 to 3 months, because so many have since opened or unfortunately have closed down. But every time I post them, within days, there's already something that's changing. So I wish there was an interactive option where I could just go in live and edit them all the time, but maybe one day. But no, it's been great because so many people that are looking to open a shop have come to me and said, where do we start? Who can I connect with? How do we bring coffee into a place like MiniTown, and it's a really great resource for someone just starting. And I also love seeing that our coffee industry is so supportive of each other. So many cafe owners are going and exploring and going to visit other cafe owners around the state to see what's working, what's not working, and develop those relationships to grow and learn from each other versus competing against each other.
I think the industry has like space for everybody.
Absolutely.
It's something everybody loves. Everybody loves coffee, right? So I love that the original idea came from a real problem you had when traveling. You wanted good coffee, but it wasn't always easy to find. When you first created the maps, did you ever expect the page to become what it is today?
Not at all. No, I didn't have really any expectation of where and how it would grow. Again, I kind of made it as a resource for myself and the community. And in just the few years that it's been up and running, I believe it's almost 3 years now, it has just rapidly grown. And I think it shows that there are so many people out there who love coffee just as much as we do. And the feedback has been great. My favorite thing is hearing cafes come to me and say, oh my gosh, like people are coming in and said they found us because of your page. Or those that were sharing stories about it's so rewarding when they've seen such an increase of traffic because people have finally gone to experience and see them. And then I have a lot of just everyday consumers who are asking, what's the best place to go to? Hey, I'm traveling. Where would you recommend that I go to? Or, oh my gosh, I love this place. Thank you so much for sharing. And those things are just so rewarding. So it's really been a great experience.
Have you had the chance to make money with your account?
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of work. I think that's the one big thing that people don't realize, that I started it as a passion. I truly believe in sharing those voices of all of our cafes, often many who don't have a lot of resources either. But I do work full time, and a lot of them are traveling far. The time it takes to put together and edit videos and create and share. If you ask my husband, I mean, the startup of this was hours and hours and hours on end, and it takes a lot of that to maintain on a regular basis. So I think it's important for people to realize that I am human. I do work full time and I have a family, and it's important for us to certainly be there for our community, but there's a lot of effort that goes into doing that.
That I think people that don't work with the internet, they definitely have no idea how hard it is to keep it up with a page or social media or something. And after visiting so many cafes, what makes a coffee shop really stand out to you? Is it the actual coffee, the atmosphere, the people behind it, or the whole experience?
The whole experience. I'm definitely find the good in everyone. People always say, what's like the worst one you've been to? And I really can't complain. There's been very few ones that I've had a horrible experience. And I would say if it's something that maybe I didn't have a good experience, it was with their customer service, but their coffee was great, or the other way around. So I find that those who have it together, they have it together. They have everything, the experience, right? Their environment, their atmosphere. They have a wonderful customer service and, of course, quality coffee. I think the biggest thing is there's so much behind coffee and education about how to make it properly, what it takes to make a cup of coffee. Like, people don't realize that process, that just to get our everyday cup of coffee, how much goes into it. And everybody and what they look for a cafe is different. My husband is European, so very much came with I'm classic, I want true quality, good coffee, don't add anything to it. Us Americans are very much add all the sugar, add all the flavor, let's have this really fun drink. And so he's really kind of taught me to scale back. In true coffee, you shouldn't have to add all of those things to it. But everybody's experience and expectations different. And so when people are going into a coffee shop, some are looking for an amazing space to work. It's all about the ambiance, how it is, maybe a mediocre cup of coffee. Others want that quality, and they don't care if there's no seating, there's no really great environment. And I think that's what's really great, is there's a wide variety of cafes here in Connecticut that you're bound to find something that suits what you're looking for in that, whether it's, again, the coffee, the environment, the customer service, or all of it. Everybody here in Connecticut has some aspect of that in their cafe.
And I'm putting you on the spot right now. What's the best cup of coffee you've had in Connecticut?
We get asked that question all the time, and it's so hard because we've had a lot of coffee and we love so many places. I will be honest and say that one of my top favorites is Victus Coffee, which obviously ties so close to MiniTown, knowing that you guys brew that here. And my husband, who's hard to please, tends to always have a say in what we try, and Victus always just stood out to him because of the quality of coffee, the craftsmanship, the care that they put in, the the professionalism that they have. Anne, who owns Victus and runs that, is just such a wonderful coffee mentor, educator. Her knowledge is amazing, and I think it really shows in what they have at their location. They did open up their second one just recently, so they are both in Hartford County, so I don't get over to there too often. But what is great is Anne at Victus they supply wholesale to many different coffee shops around Connecticut, and what I find is that consistency is some of those coffee shops that we go to, we also love because it's their coffee and how she's setting those places up for success in her team. It really shows. And yeah, they've just been a staple for us, both going and visiting, but also at home when we make coffee. But I will say there are so many other wonderful cafes and roasters that it is very hard to ever pick a favorite because, again, we see the good in everybody and we're always trying new places. So there's still many that we haven't gotten to experience yet.
I have to agree with you that Victus is the best, not just because we sell Victus at MiniTown, but we also have Victus at home. And my husband, he always says, like, you ruin coffee for me. Victus ruin any other coffee for me because now I can't drink other coffee. If I drink other coffee, I feel the difference in everything. It's like sometimes it tastes like more burned or something, and Victus is always perfect. And even at MiniTown or at home, we just have Victus, and he's like, yeah, that ruins like Starbucks. I don't even think about it anymore.
And fun fact, when we came to MiniTown's opening, Anne was here, obviously getting the coffee bar set up. So it was really amazing to be able to talk with her and learn more about Victus as a whole. And since then, I've gotten to sit down and have opportunities to learn about their locations in the industry, which has been really nice. So
there was where you met.
Yes, here at MiniTown. Okay. Yeah, so when she came to the grand opening, we kind of just started talking about everything.
She's amazing.
And since then, we have gotten to go and visit and obviously stop by. And it was just such a great, perfect pairing.
Yeah, last year she trained our baristas. Actually, we need another treatment because we have new baristas now. But she trained our baristas last summer, and she's amazing. She's very, very good with what she does. Now we're gonna do a quick fire, so I'm gonna ask a few questions. You answer the first thing that come in your mind. So I'm not gonna ask you coffee or tea because I already know the answer. But I'm gonna ask you, what's your go-to coffee?
I love a good cortado. That is definitely something that when you are visiting cafes, if they know coffee, they're going to make a really good one, but not everybody offers that, unfortunately, on their menu or knows how to make a good one. But our go-to is always ordering a latte of some sort, typically.
That's my favorite. Yeah. And do you prefer hot or iced?
Iced.
You prefer light or cold brew? A latte or cold brew?
A latte or cold brew?
Yeah.
Definitely a latte.
You are a morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Travel or staycation?
Travel.
Indoor play or outdoor play?
Outdoor play.
Messy play or clean play?
Messy play.
Routine or spontaneity?
I'm definitely a routine person for sure.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Favorite age to work with?
Oh, that's such a hard one. I love my littles. So, I obviously love working with children of all ages, but 5 and under are my sweet spot of ages. I know that's a big range, but there's just so many perfect moments and great opportunities on all of those ages. I just love seeing them grow.
Do you miss teaching?
I do. There's definitely times, now that I'm in more of an administrative position. So here at the Speech Pathology Group, we have occupational therapists, speech therapists, and applied behavior therapy. I oversee a lot more. So I'm not necessarily directly with the children, but my cup is filled every day, just being there and being present. I've definitely jumped in, and I love teaching and I love development. So I think the role that I'm in is just been really rewarding and great. But yeah, my heart will always be with the kids. And I think that's also what I love about having a son myself, is now I'm fully in it with him. And I just love being able to tie those two fields together.
My son is going to kindergarten this year, and I hope you
so
were his
excited.
teacher. I hope his teacher's as good as you. And one thing kids need more of.
Play. I mean, play is our biggest thing. I think the more opportunities we can give them, no matter what it is, indoor play, outdoor play, social play, just more opportunities to be a kid and for us to be present for them. I think that's our biggest thing, is we can become so distracted as a parent that it's hard. You know, parenting is hard, but those little moments where we can slow down and truly just turn on and be there for them makes a world of difference for them. They, again, are taking in everything around them, and they see those really little moments where we step away and we're on the phone or we're texting or we're doing something. It makes a big difference for them. So being present is key.
Our life is so busy.
It is, yeah.
One thing parents should worry less about.
You know, parenting is hard. I will always say, you're doing your best and you're doing great. As a parent, there's so much we can worry about every day, but you will always know deep down and trust your gut. So my biggest takeaway is, when in doubt, go ask for help, you know, seek out support and advice if you think something is wrong. Otherwise, we get so down on ourselves. We regret, we look back, we should have done something. I wish I did that. You know, we'll always be very hard on ourselves as parents, and there's nothing wrong with seeking out extra help. If something is unsettling or you're just not sure something is right, trust your gut, because you'd rather know everything's fine or here's some help and support to get there, because it's hard. You're not going to know it all, and it's okay to rely on others and seek out that additional advice to know that you're doing okay.
And because you're both a pediatric OT and a mom, professional Caitlin or mom Caitlin, who worries more?
Who worries more?
Yeah.
Mom Caitlin, always, right? We become such a worry war as a mom. Once you have your own child, our brains change, right? We're wired and we're there for them. And I think it's so important that our professional career is so important to us, but our first need is our family. And it's so important to be there. And I think being worried about them is totally okay and totally normal. And if we weren't worried about them, I'd be concerned, because we are their lifeline, we're their support, we're their advocate, as I shared. So we should always be there for them. And it's such a rewarding position to have, you know, not a career position, but a family position to be a mom. And you know, shout out to all the moms that are out there, and other parents and dads. There's amazing dads, grandparents. You know, we couldn't do it without each other. But yeah, being a mom is such an amazing role to have.
It makes us very worried all the time. Yes. My son, he's 4, and we just found out his 2 bottom teeth are wiggling, and I was like, is that normal? Because I mean, he's just 4. I don't know, but I mean, I hope it's normal. But he didn't had any trauma or anything. It just happened to be wiggling. I think it's just because the new tooth is coming up.
Yeah, definitely being a boy mom, I'm sure all boy moms can relate. I feel like we get the little extra worry just because they're always on the go. They're always getting into things. They're always
wild,
getting hurt. You know, it's bound to happen.
It is. And I want to end with something every parent watching can take away from this conversation. You said something in your bio that I really loved. That being both a mom and a pediatric occupational therapist has taught you how important it is to be present, support our children, and give them the confidence to become the best version of themselves. So with everything you've learned professionally and personally, if you could give parents just one piece of advice about raising happy, confident, developing little humans, what would it be?
Probably going back to what I said a little bit earlier is being present. You know, that they need us as parents, and I never personally want to look back and miss those moments. As we all know, time goes by so quickly. and you cherish every moment, and we don't get those moments back. So if I ever were to go back, and even now, I would take more time to be present, to be there. We all don't get sleep, but that's temporary. And it's so easy to get caught up and upset or frustrated, but we only have these opportunities for so little of a time. And I just think when you can really look at the bigger picture in the lens of knowing no matter what it is, like things are going to be okay. And if I'm there, that's the most important piece. And being great role models. Again, they're watching everything that we do. So just being a little bit more conscious of what we're doing and saying on a day-to-day basis makes a world of difference in their learning and what they pick up and what they, put out there in the world.
And if I can add something to your advice, I would say really to enjoy every little second, because in a blink of eyes, they are going to be packing to leave.
Yeah.
And that's good. I'm happy, right? We got to be happy for them. But it's at the same time, it's like a heartbreaking because,
a piece of you is moving away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And wow. Anyway, so Caitlin, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I learned a lot. I hope everybody else learned. I love this conversation because I think we are surrounded by so much information about what our children should be doing, when they should be doing it, and whether we are doing enough as parents. And sometimes we feel guilty because we feel like we are not doing enough. But then when you look back, you think no, I did everything right, because now they're grown and they are good people. And so, but it's hard because until they get there, you're always thinking, did I do something wrong?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think conversations like this are a great reminder that so much development happens through very simple things: playing, moving, exploring, interacting with other children, struggling a little, becoming independent, and having adults around them who give them the confidence to try. Thank you for sharing both your professional experience and perspective as a mom of our community. And to everyone watching, thank you for joining us for another episode of MiniTown Talks. Make sure you subscribe to your YouTube channel, follow MiniTown, and share this episode with another parent who might enjoy this conversation. And Caitlin, considering MiniTown combines kids and coffee, I feel like we're basically your perfect place. So we'll see you next time at MiniTown Talks. And do you want to leave your Instagram? What it is,
sure.
so people can follow you too?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was such a great pleasure to be able to share. If anybody ever has questions, they're more than welcome to reach out. As my profession as an OT, but also as our clinical director of the speech pathology group. We do have 2 locations in Shelton and Southbury, Connecticut. We do a lot of great consults for parents. If they ever have questions, they can always inquire.
What's the name of the place?
The Speech Pathology Group and Rehab Services of Connecticut. So they can check us out online and connect with us there. And then on the coffee side of things, we are mostly present on Instagram and Facebook as Coffee in Connecticut. So if you check out that page, all the maps are always there and getting updated, and hopefully you'll be able to try some new coffee along the way.
Yeah, you definitely will. Yeah. I think there's new coffees everywhere.
Always.
Every time.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave all Caitlin informations down here in the description, so you can find her as occupational therapist or as a coffee lover. And I hope to see you soon at MiniTown with your baby.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.